I've been a baker and a recipe developer for over 10 years now, and here are the ingredients that I never buy generic. And before anyone gets upset, I'm not saying you can't buy these ingredients generic. I'm all about getting a value. I don't buy these generic because I do not get consistent results with them. And sometimes when I do buy the cheaper ingredient, it actually ruins my baked good and ends up costing me more in the long run. So I'm all about baking on a budget, and there's some ingredients I absolutely will buy generic, but not these. First, and probably most importantly, if you are going to only buy one name brand ingredient, it should be your baking powder. I cannot tell you how many recipes I've had ruined because I used a generic baking powder. I'm not sure if it's a quality control issue or the formula of generic brands, but have you ever made a recipe and then bitten into the finished product, especially if it uses a fair amount of baking powder, and you tasted something bitter and salty and very just kind of disgusting? It's just like a pocket of bad taste. That's probably baking powder that's clumped, and it's way more likely to happen with generic baking powder, at least in my experience. I've ruined cookies, cornbreads, and cakes trying to save money with cheaper baking powder. I don't do it anymore. The baking powder I like right now and use is a double-acting aluminum-free one. I like this one from Rumford. None of these products are sponsoring me. Feel free to reach out because I do use and love you, but this is what I like to use. That being said, if your budget only allows for generic baking powder, here's what I would recommend. Run it through a very fine mesh sifter before using it, or mix it in with your flour and then run those ingredients together through a sifter. I'd probably do it 2, maybe even 3 times. That way, if there are any clumps, you're more likely to break them up. Especially use one of those where it has the hand crank. The clumps can also happen if your baking powder is exposed to moisture, even if it's a nice quality name brand. So that's just something to be aware of as well. Next, baking soda for the exact same reason. Baking soda, at least, is generally pretty inexpensive even if you're buying name brand. It's also prone to clumping, especially if it's older or exposed to moisture, but this is less likely to happen in my experience with name brand. Another thing, I actually never like to buy a box this big. This was a substitution. I actually wanted a smaller box. I don't like them this big because even though I bake a lot, this is a lot of baking soda to go through, and the longer you have it, the more chance there is that it's exposed to moisture or just starts to clump. Again, if you only have generic, do the same thing I recommended with the baking powder. I do not buy generic chocolate chips. Generic chocolate chips usually have a lot more filler than the name brands, and they use less cocoa solids, so it means they're actually less chocolate overall. I can actually notice the taste difference in chocolate chip cookies made with generic chocolate chips versus regular. And when I'm developing recipes, they can't be compromised because of the quality of a chocolate chip. So while this won't necessarily ruin your baked good, it is going to lower the quality enough that I think it's worth buying a name brand. Ghirardelli are great, but they're more of a premium or a higher end option. If you don't want to spring for those, Nestle are fine. They work just fine, and you're not going to notice them in your chocolate chip cookies the same way you're going to notice a generic one. I also don't buy baking bars that are generic for the same reason. A lot of you who make my cookie recipes know that instead of chocolate chips, if I'm trying to make something really premium quality, I chop up chocolate instead. Try it, it makes a huge difference in your cookies. When I'm using store-bought brands, I either use Ghirardelli or Baker's. Either one really works really fine in my recipes. Finally, the cream cheese. I have had enough bad experiences with cream cheese that was generic that I don't buy it anymore. I will say the caveat is if I'm making a recipe that uses cream cheese but not a lot of it, like maybe a soup where you add 3 ounces, that would be okay. But if it's a cream cheese heavy recipe like cheesecake or cream cheese frosting, I only use name brand. The Philadelphia, I think, is that the only name brand? No, it's not the only name brand, but it's the one that I use in my kitchen all of the time. I've had cheesecakes turn out runny, the texture just not be right, so I do stick with name brand because I want to make sure that my results are consistent and repeatable. So if you're on a budget and can't splurge on all of your baked goods, these are the few I would recommend you purchasing name brand. This is based on my own experience with baking, like I said, over the past 10 plus years. If you're interested in a part 2 of the ingredients that I do use generic, let me know and I will get that video filmed. Maybe I'll just do it anyway. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you'd like to see a part 2, and thank you so much for watching. Am I a professional baker? Run it through a very fine mess for over 10 years now. How long has it been? Run it through man, I could probably be getting paid for this. So that's just, okay, I got it. That's fine. I just want to be helpful.